Okay, so I'm just finishing up here. I'm just finishing up doing my leaf, my stem here and my leaf. So as you can see, I got all the colors in. I'm making sure I clean it up. And now my last part of this project is to put on some watercolors here. And these are really awesome watercolors that I found. And this is very similar to what you would have in class. And let's talk about painting with watercolor. It's watercolor, so that means I've got to add water. So I'm going to do, so the first thing I'm going to do is pick the color I want, and I'm going to put some paint on it. And the reason they make them like this is so that you can actually put water into the paint, over the paint, and get it wet. You want it wet. If you don't get it wet, it's not going to paint for you. When you paint, you want to hold your paintbrush like you do your pencil, and it's really important to paint in one direction and not scrub. You don't want to go back and forth and scrub. And if you don't have enough paint, and if the bristles are starting to separate on you, similar to like this, that means you don't have enough water and you're damaging the paintbrush. So that's something really important to figure out. Now, watercolor can be tricky, and one of the things to start with is you want to start close to the leaf and then work out, and you want to paint with water. So I'm trying to get as much color as I can around the leaf. And if you notice, I'm not painting out to the edges yet. I'm just starting around the outside of the leaf. You got to be really careful, because if you're not watching what you're doing, you will get paint inside your leaf. So I'm trying to get as much as I can. This is a little bit different than the ones I use. I use something a little differently than this. Now, once I get it out to a certain degree, what am I doing? I am cleaning off my brush, getting all the paint out of it. Now, this is what makes watercolor watercolor. I'm going to paint with watercolor. Notice what happens when I put a wet brush over the top of it that just has water in it. I can spread the paint out. So we call this a wash. And I will come back over, and then if it's not dark enough, I can come back and add more. And this is the turquoise color I'm using. I'm going to actually also come back and add another color over it later on. So I'm going to start with the lightest color, just like you did with the crayons. And I'm going to actually put some water here. Now you have to be really careful with this kind of paper, because it is not watercolor paper. Later on in another lesson, I'll show you what watercolor paper really is. This is regular paper, and if you put too much water, and if you're noticing puddles here, it's going to turn soggy and become a mess. So you never want to have standing puddles of water on your paper. So if you notice that that's happening, take your paintbrush and spread them out. I don't even know if I can even make that scenario happen, but there you go. I'm starting to put I made a couple of puddles. See these puddles right here? That's too much. I need to start spreading it out, and I'm only painting in one direction with my paintbrush. I'm painting up and away, and it's okay if you want to run the paper right off of the paint right off the paper onto the desk. It'll just wipe right up. It's not that big of a deal. So don't freak out if you get paint up there. It comes right off. It's watercolor after all. And watercolor is really easy to wash away. So my paper is starting to curl up a little bit, and that'll happen because it's wet. Now while I have the top done, I'm going to show you what I mean by adding another color. So I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to choose, I don't know what's here, let's see. This looks like a blue. I've got a darker blue here, and I'm just going to come in and add spots. I'm not painting it everywhere. I got a little bit here and a little bit there. Now, rinsing. Cleaning my brush is important, and I'm going to just rub it around, and the colors will mix on the paper. So I'm actually changing it up a little bit. I don't recommend using all the colors in the pan. I know that's really tempting. Lots of kids think more color is better. Actually, not so much. So you want to think about 2, maybe 3 colors. I think 3 colors might be stretching it. Try to limit yourself and not get too carried away and add too much, because then you don't want the background to detract from your picture. This is the main focus, and I want to keep everybody's eyeballs there. I just think it's prettier on a colored background than a non-colored background. So that's why this background is much lighter than what you see up here. I want everyone to have their eyeballs centered on my beautiful leaf, not on my beautiful background. That's not what the point of the picture is. So this is the main item. So that's what I mean by not getting carried away. If you start putting lots of colors and paint back here, it's going not to look what you want it to look like. It's going to be something different, and you might be disappointed with the project. So artists are always having to use a little self-control and limit what they put on, especially if they don't want the focus to be drawn away. from the main product, which is the leaf. Okay, so now you've got the general idea of how I do this. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to let you finish, and when you're done, turn the video back on and we'll talk about how to end the project. Okay, see you in a little bit.